Hello. Tonight we're stepping into the dusty boots of a laborer on the Great Wall of China, where the sun's scorching, the rocks are heavy, and your back's already plotting a revolt. Picture this: you're standing on a rugged hillside, squinting at a half-built wall that stretches farther than your dreams of a day off. The air smells of sweat and earth. And somewhere, a foreman's barking orders like he's auditioning for emperor. Spoiler: you're not cut out for this. And you'll probably drop a rock on your foot before lunch. But don't worry. We'll get through this together, chuckling at your missteps and marveling at the madness of building a wall to end all walls. So, before you get cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I'm doing here. Drop a comment to let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love hearing about your corner of the world. Now, turn off the lights, switch on the fan for that gentle hum, and let's start tonight's journey together. You're up before dawn, the sky still bruised with stars, and your straw mat feels like a cruel joke compared to the sleep you didn't get. The camp's a mess of snoring laborers, creaking carts, and the faint clink of tools being sharpened. You pull on your threadbare tunic, already dusted with yesterday's dirt, and grab a stale millet cake that tastes like regret. The Great Wall's northern frontier looms ahead, a jagged line of stones snaking through hills that look like they're judging you. Your job: haul rocks, big ones, all day, the kind that make your shoulders scream and your hands blister before you've even started. The foreman, a man with a face like a sour persimmon, shouts your name or close enough to it. You stop dreaming of palace banquets and move. You'd laugh, but you're too busy dodging his glare. You trudge to the quarry, where oxen groan under the weight of carts, piled high with limestone. The air's thick with dust, coating your throat like a bad memory. You heft a rock the size of a small goat, your arms trembling, and stagger toward the wall's base. Around you, hundreds of laborers, men and women, young and old, shuffle in the same gritty dance. Some sing to keep their spirits up, their voices cracking over lyrics about lost loves and rice wine. You try humming along, but it comes out more like a wheeze. Here's the thing: this wall's been growing for centuries. Started under the Qin Dynasty around 221 BCE, when Emperor Qin Shi Huang decided to stitch together older fortifications into one massive barrier against northern nomads. That's the orthodox event, the kind you'd carve into a history scroll. Qin's long gone now, but the Han Dynasty's keeping the dream alive, and you're stuck in the middle of it. Circa cento BCE. The wall's meant to stop invaders like the Xiongnu, who ride in like a storm and leave villages in ashes. But right now, your biggest enemy is this rock, which is definitely plotting to crush your toes. You pause to wipe sweat from your brow, and a fellow laborer, a wiry guy named Liang, grins at you. You look like you're wrestling a mountain. He says, "Want a tip? Pretend the rock's your ex-lover. Hug it tight. Then let it go." You snort, because Liang's got a knack for making misery sound like poetry. You try his advice, but the rock still feels like it hates you. Speaking of misery, here's a quirky fact. Laborers like you sometimes used sticky rice paste to bind stones together. That's right, your lunch could double as construction glue. Imagine explaining that to a modern chef. Yeah, my porridge is holding up a national monument. You're not alone in this grind. The wall's a magnet for dreamers, drifters, and folks who owe someone important a favor. There's a scholarly debate about how many died building it. Some say tens of thousands. Others argue it's closer to millions over centuries. Historians bicker over records, pointing to poems and court ledgers that hint at mass graves hidden under these hills. You don't know the numbers, but you feel the ghosts in the way the wind howls at night, like it's carrying their complaints. You finally drop your rock at the wall's base, and a mason gives you a nod, which feels like a small victory. The sun's climbing, and the heat's turning your tunic into a second skin. You glance at the wall. Its stones uneven but stubborn, like a farmer's teeth. It's not pretty yet, but it's yours in a way, every blister, every ache, every muttered curse. You're part of something bigger, even if it's just a footnote in a dynasty's saga. Time for a breather, because you're not built for this, and neither is your spine. You lean against a cart, sipping lukewarm water from a gourd. Liang ambles over, tossing a pebble in the air. You ever try calligraphy, he asks? Because your rock-hauling form is pure poetry, bad poetry. You roll your eyes, but you're grinning. Jokes like these keep you sane. Here's another you try running from the foreman's whip. Spoiler, you'd trip over your own sandals. And another you think you're tough, the wall's tougher. And it's not even trying. The day drags on, and you're hauling another rock when a horn blares a signal to shift tasks. Now you're stacking stones, trying to align them without losing a finger. The mason, a woman with hands like leather, shows you how to wedge them tight. Think of it like a puzzle, she says, except the pieces hate you. You laugh, because it's true. You're a new architect, but you're learning fast, mostly out of fear of her scowl. Here's a fourth joke you try designing this wall. You'd build a gate where the watchtower should be. And one more, you think you're sweaty now. Wait till the emperor visits and you're scrubbing the camp. By dusk, your body's screaming, but the wall's a little taller, a little prouder. You collapse onto a mat under a willow tree, the stars peeking through its branches. The camp's quiet now, save for the crackle of a fire and someone strumming a lute. You close your eyes, wondering if this wall will outlast you. Your children, your children's children, it probably will. For now, you're just glad to be horizontal. Even if your dreams are filled with rocks chasing you down a hill. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. More rocks, more dust, more of Liang's terrible puns. You'll curse the wall, but you'll keep building it, because that's what you do. You're not a hero, not a scholar, just a pair of hands making history one stone at a time. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You wake to the sound of rain, a soft patter that turns your straw mat into a soggy betrayal. The camp's a muddy mess, and you're already knee-deep in sludge before you've had your morning millet. Picture it, the Great Wall's half-built silhouette looms through the mist. Its stones, slick and grumpy, like they're annoyed at the weather too. Your tunic's plastered to your skin, and every step squelches, announcing your misery to the hills. You're not just building a wall today, you're wrestling nature itself. And spoiler, nature's winning. The foreman's voice cuts through the drizzle, sharper than a Xiongnu arrow. Move. You lot, the wall won't build itself. You'd roll your eyes, but you're too busy slipping in the mud. You trudge to the quarry, where the oxen are having their own bad day, their hooves sinking as they drag carts piled with sodden limestone. You grab a rock, its surface slippery as a fish, and start the long slog to the wall. Around you, laborers curse under their breath, their voices muffled by the rain. One woman, May, mutters, "If the emperor wants this wall so bad, let him carry the rocks." You nod, because she's not wrong. This rain's no fluke. It's part of the Han Dynasty's endless battle with the elements. Circa 100 BCE. The orthodox event here is the wall's expansion under Emperor Wu, who poured resources into fortifying it against northern tribes. He wasn't just building a barrier, he was flexing imperial muscle, showing the Xiongnu who's boss. But down here in the mud, you're less impressed with his grand vision. Your world's reduced to wet boots, aching arms, and the faint hope of a dry spot to eat lunch. You're halfway to the wall when Liang, your pun-loving friend, sloshes up beside you. "You look like a drowned rat," he says, grinning. Want a tip? Hug the rock tighter. It's the only thing not trying to escape. You snort, but the rock slips, nearly taking you down with it. Liang's laugh echoes. And for a moment, the rain's a little less miserable. Here's a quirky fact. Some laborers believed rain was a sign of dragons stirring in the mountains. You glance at the misty peaks, half expecting a scaly tail to flick through the clouds. Spoiler, no dragons. Just more mud. You drop your rock at the wall's base, where masons are cursing the weather as they try to fit stones together. The sticky rice paste, yes. That glue you learned about yesterday is turning into a gummy disaster in the rain. You're tasked with fetching more, slogging through the camp to a cart where a cook's guarding a vat of the stuff. Don't spill it, she snaps, handing you a bucket. This is worth more than your wages. You'd argue, but you're pretty sure she's right. There's a scholarly debate about how laborers like you survived these conditions. Some historians say the Han Dynasty provided decent rations, millet, dried fish, maybe even wine for festivals. Others argue you were half-starved, worked to death, and buried where you fell. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle. But right now, your stomach's growling loud enough to scare off a young new scout. You're not dead yet, but you're definitely dreaming of a hot meal. You're back at the wall, splashing through puddles, when a cart gets stuck in the mud. The driver, a burly man named Guo, yells for help, and you join a dozen others pushing against the wheels. The mud's like glue, sucking at your sandals, and you're pretty sure you've lost one for good. Push like you mean it. Guo barks. You do, and the cart lurches free, spraying you with a fresh coat of sludge. The crew cheers, and Guo slaps your back. You're not useless after all, he says. High praise. Really? Time for a break. Because your arms are staging a mutiny. You huddle under a tarp with Liang, sharing a soggy millet cake. You ever try swimming, he asks. Because you're drowning in this mud. You groan, but you're smiling. Here's a joke. You try dodging this rain, you'd slip and faceplant in a puddle. And another. You think you're wet now. Wait till you fall in the ox pen. You toss a pebble at Liang, but is too quick. Already laughing. The rain's easing, but the work isn't. You're assigned to clear mud from the wall's foundation, scooping it out with a wooden shovel that's seen better days. Maze nearby, stacking stones with a precision you envy. Think of it like cooking, she says. Too much mud, and the recipe's ruined. You try her advice, but your shoveling's more like a bad dance move. Here's a third joke you try leading this crew. You'd have us building the wall in a circle, and a fourth you think you're clumsy. The oxen are judging you, and they've got 4 left feet. By afternoon, the clouds part, and a weak sun peeks through, turning the camp into a steaming swamp. You're caked in mud, looking like a walking clay statue. But the wall's foundation is clearer, thanks to you. You pose, catching your breath, and notice a small carving on a stone, a laborer's name, etched with a shaky hand. It's a reminder that you're not alone, that others have slogged through this too. You wonder if you'll leave your own mark, or if the mud will swallow it first. The day's end brings a rare treat, a fire to dry your clothes. You sit with Mei and Liang, the flames crackling as someone passes around a jug of weak wine. It tastes like regret, but it's warm in your belly. You survived today. You can survive anything, Mai says, raising her cup. You clink yours against hers, feeling a flicker of pride. Here's a final joke. You try outrunning this mud tomorrow. You'd leave both sandals behind, and the foreman's whip would catch you first. You collapse onto your mat. The stars brighter, now that the rain's gone. The wall's still there, stubborn as ever. And you're still here, stubborn too. You close your eyes, the fire's warmth lingering, and dream of a day when the mud's just a memory. Tomorrow, you'll face it again, more rocks, more rain, more of Liang's terrible puns. But for now, you're dry, you're alive, and that's enough. Section 3. Asterisk. Asterisk. You're jolted awake by a peacock's screech, a sound so obnoxious it could wake an emperor's ghost. The camp's buzzing, and not in a good way. Word spread that Emperor Wu's envoy is visiting today, inspecting the Great Wall's progress. You're sweating already, and not just from the morning sun. Picture it. You're scrambling to look presentable, your tunic still damp from yesterday's mudfest, while that peacock, apparently the emperor's prized pet, struts through the camp like it owns the place. Spoiler, you're about to make a fool of yourself in front of royalty, and the peacock's judging you harder than the envoy. You grab a millet cake, choke it down, and join the laborers lining up like nervous schoolkids. The foreman's pacing, his sour persimmon face, even sourer. No slacking, no tripping, no breathing wrong, he barks. You'd laugh, but you're too busy checking your sandals. Yep, still one short from the mud. The wall looms behind you, its stones gleaming in the dawn light, a testament to your blisters and Liang's bad jokes. You're proud of it, sort of, but right now, you just want to survive this inspection without dropping a rock on someone important. The envoy arrives in a cloud of dust, his silk robes so bright they hurt your eyes. He's flanked by scribes and guards. And that peacock, which is somehow shinier than the envoy's ego. The orthodox event here is Emperor Wu's obsession with the wall. Circa cento, BCE. When he sent officials to micromanage every stone, Wu wanted this barrier to scream Han Dynasty forever, keeping out the Xiongnu and impressing anyone who dared look north. But you're just hoping the envoy doesn't notice your mismatched sandals. Liang sidles up, whispering, "You look like you slept in a pigsty." You elbow him, but he's not wrong. Want a tip? Bow low, and maybe they'll miss your face. You smirk, but your stomach's doing flips. The envoy's droning about imperial glory, while the peacock pecks at your foot. You freeze, praying it doesn't draw blood. Here's a quirky fact. Emperors sometimes gifted peacocks to allies. A flex of wealth and weird taste. This one's named Jade Feather, and you're pretty sure it's plotting your downfall. You're assigned to haul rocks, shocker, for the envoy's tour. You heft one, your arms screaming, and shuffle toward the wall's newest section. The envoy's scribe, a twitchy man with ink-stained fingers, jots notes as you work. Efficient, he mutters, and you almost drop the rock in shock. Efficient. You're one bad step from a faceplant. The peacock squawks, and you swear it's laughing. There's a scholarly debate about how much forced labor built the wall. Some say it was mostly conscripts, farmers, debtors, petty criminals like you. Maybe. Others argue volunteers flocked to serve the emperor. You're no scholar, but volunteer doesn't describe your current life. The envoy pauses, pointing at a wobbly stone. "Fix it," he says, and the foreman glares at you like it's your fault. You grab a mallet, pretending you know what you're doing, and tap the stone into place. The envoy nods, and you feel briefly heroic until Jade Feather nips your ankle. You yelp, hopping on one foot, and the guards snicker. Liang's doubled over, whispering, "You're a peacock whisperer now." Here's a joke you try impressing this envoy. You'd trip over your own ego and land in the emperor's lap. And another, you think you're clumsy. That peacock's got better moves than you. The tour drags on, and you're sweating buckets. Not just from the rocks, but from the envoy's scrutiny. He's quizzing the masons about sticky rice paste, and you're silently grateful. You're not in charge of that gooey mess today. May, the mason with hands like leather, catches your eye, and winks. Don't let the bird win. She mouths. You nod. But jade feathers circling like a tiny, feathered warlord. You're tempted to shoo it, but you like your head attached to your neck. By midday, you're tasked with fetching water for the crew. A job that sounds easy, until you realize the well's half a mile away. You slog through the camp, buckets swinging, dodging carts and that cursed peacock, which is now following you. Go away. You hiss, but it just tilts its head, like it's sizing you up for dinner. Here's a third joke. You try outrunning Jade Feather. You'd lose, and it'd steal your lunch for the victory lap. And a fourth, you think you're tired. The Emperor's scribes are exhausted from writing about your failures. You're back with the water, spilling half of it when the envoy suddenly calls you over. Your heart stops. He's holding a stone, one you hauled yesterday, and for a wild second, you think he's about to praise you. This is adequate, he says, which is the closest you'll get to a compliment. You mumble thanks, bowing so low you nearly kiss the dirt. The peacock screeches, and you're pretty sure it's mocking your form. Liang's grin says he agrees. The envoy finally leaves, his entourage kicking up dust as they go. Jade Feather gives you one last glare before strutting off, and you collapse against a cart, exhausted but alive. The foreman claps your shoulder, actual human contact, and mutters, "Not bad." You're stunned. May hands you a fresh millet cake, and Liang toasts you with a gourd of water. To surviving the Emperor's pet, he says, "Here's a final joke you try. Befriending that peacock. It'd demand your wages and your soul." The camp settles as dusk falls, the wall glowing under a crescent moon. You're sore, humiliated, and oddly proud. You survived the envoy, the peacock, and your own bad luck. You stretch out on your mat, the stars winking like they're in on the joke. Tomorrow, you'll haul more rocks, dodge more birds, and probably trip over something new. But for now, you're here. The wall's still standing, and that's enough. Remember, Jade Feather. Yeah, you'll see that feathered menace in your nightmares. You're roused by the distant howl of a wolf, a sound that makes your skin prickle as you lie on your straw mat. Dusk is settling over the Great Wall's frontier, painting the hills in shades of amber and shadow. And you're on guard duty tonight, perched on a half-built watchtower, with nothing but a spear and your questionable courage. Picture it. The wall stretches like a stone serpent, silent, except for the wind's low moan, and you're scanning the horizon for bandits, or worse, Zion new raiders who'd love to ruin your one good day. Spoiler, you're not cut out for heroics, and you'll probably jump at a squirrel before the night's over. You shift on the tower's rough stones, your tunic itching from days of sweat and dust. The camp's below, a flicker of firelight, where laborers swap stories and millet cakes. You're alone up here, except for a clay lamp that's more flicker than flame. The foreman picked you for this shift because, in his words, you're too clumsy to break anything valuable. Thanks, pal. You grip your spear, its shaft worn smooth by hands before yours, and try to look like you know what you're doing. You don't. This guard duty's no small thing. It's tied to the orthodox event of the Han Dynasty's border defense, Circa Cento BCE. When watchtowers like yours were built to spot invaders, the wall wasn't just a barrier. It was a network of signals, with smoke by day and fire by night to warn of attacks. You're part of that chain, a link that feels awfully shaky right now. The Xiongnu are out there, horsemen who strike like lightning, and you've heard tales of villages burned to ash. Your job's to keep the camp safe, but you're mostly hoping not to stab yourself by accident. You're scanning the hills when a rustle makes you freeze. It's just lying, climbing up with a grin and a gourd of water. You look like you're guarding the Emperor's gold. He says, "Relax. or you'll scare the stars away. You scowl, but you're glad for the company. Liang's got a knack for making terror feel like a bad joke. Here's a quirky fact. Some watchtowers had clay whistles built into the walls, so the wind would wail like a ghost to spook invaders. You listen, but all you hear is your own heartbeat. Maybe this tower's whistle's broken, or maybe you're just jumpy. You pass the gourd back and forth. The water warm, but welcome. Liang points to a faint glow on the horizon. Could be nomads, he says, or just a shepherd with a bad fire. You squint, your stomach twisting. There's a scholarly debate about how effective these towers were. Some historians say they saved countless lives, relaying signals faster than any rider. Others argue they were mostly for show, too spread out to stop a real raid. You're no expert, but sitting here, you feel like a sitting duck with a stick. A shadow moves in the valley, and you nearly drop the spear. Liang grabs your arm. Easy. It's just a deer. You exhale, your face burning. You'd make a terrible bandit. He says, chuckling, you'd trip over your own ambush. Here's a joke. You try fighting a Zongnu warrior, you'd wave your spear and accidentally salute him. And another, you think you're brave. The deer's braver. And it's not even armed. The night deepens, and you're pacing the tower to stay awake. Liang's humming a tune about a fisherman's daughter. But he stops when you hiss at a new sound, hooves. Faint, but real. You both crouch, peering into the dark. Your lamp's useless now, and you're cursing its existence. The hooves fade. Probably just a stray horse. But your heart's still hammering. Liang whispers. You're shaking like a leaf in a storm. You'd argue, but he's right. Here's a third joke. You try signaling the camp you'd set your own tunic on fire. And a fourth, you think you're stealthy. The wolves are laughing, and they've got better hiding spots. You're back to scanning when May's voice calls from below. She's bringing you a millet cake. Climbing the tower with the grace you'll never have. Thought you'd be starving, she says, tossing you the cake. You catch it barely and mumble, thanks. Mai stays, her eyes sharp as she scans the hills. You see anything? You shout. She says, don't play hero. You nod, feeling less alone with her and Liang here. The wall's a team effort, even if you're the weakest link. By midnight, the air's colder, and you're wrapping your arms around yourself. The spear propped against the wall. Nothing's attacked. Thank the heavens. But you're still on edge. Liang's dozing, and May's carving something into the tower's stone, a lotus. She says, for luck. You watch, wishing you had her calm. Here's a final joke. You try carving your name up here, you'd chisel your own finger off. And the bandits would applaud. Dawn's first light creeps over the hills, and you're still alive, still clutching that spear. The camp stirs below, and the foreman's shout means your shift's over. You climb down, legs wobbly, and collapse by a fire. May hands you a cup of hot broth, and Liang claps your shoulder. You didn't eat, he says. That's a win. You laugh, because it's true. The wall's still there. The Xiongnu didn't show, and you didn't fall off the tower. Small victories. You stretch out, the fire's warmth chasing the night's chill. The stars are fading, and you're fading too, into a half-sleep, where wolves and bandits blur into dreams. Tomorrow, you'll haul rocks again. Maybe dodge Jade Feather's wrath, remember that peacock. But for now, you're safe. The wall's holding, and that's enough. You're shivering under a thin blanket as winter's first frost kisses your nose. The camp around you silent, except for the crunch of ice under someone's boots. The Great Wall's northern edge feels like the edge of the world today. Its stones dusted with snow, and you're chiseling limestone in a wind so sharp it could carve your bones. Picture it. Your breath puffs out in clouds, Your fingers are numb, and you're wondering why nobody in the Han Dynasty invented gloves, or at least a decent coat. Spoiler, you're about to discover that winter's a worse foreman than the one yelling at you now. You drag yourself up, your straw mat crackling with frost, and grab a millet cake so cold it might double as a hammer. The camp's a frozen maze of tents and carts, with laborers huddled around fires that barely dent the chill. You're assigned to the quarry today, breaking stones from a cliff face that's as welcoming as a Xiongnu warlord. The foreman's voice cuts through the cold move. Or you'll freeze where you stand, you'd glare, but your face is too stiff. You trudge to the quarry, your sandals slipping on icy patches, and pick up a chisel that feels like it's mocking your frozen hands. This winter work is part of the orthodox event of the Great Wall's relentless construction, Circa cento BCE, when Emperor Wu's crews pushed through brutal seasons to keep the Xiongnu at bay. The Han Dynasty didn't pause for snow, they doubled down, hauling stones across frozen rivers and building watchtowers in blizzards. You're living that legacy, one frostbitten toe at a time. And you're not thrilled about it. The wall's supposed to protect the empire, but right now, you're just trying to protect your fingers. Liang's at the quarry, his breath steaming as he swings a mallet. You look like a snow spirit. He says, grinning, "Want a tip, chisel faster. It's the only way to stay warm." You groan, but you try, your chisel slipping and sparking against the stone. Liang's laugh is warmer than the fire you wish you had. Here's a quirky fact. Some laborers warmed their tools over fires to keep them from sticking to frozen stone. You glance at the nearest brazier, tempted, but the foreman's watching like a hawk with a grudge. You're chipping away when May joins you, her scarf wrapped tight against the wind. She's carrying a basket of charcoal, a rare gift from the supply cart. "For the crew," she says, dumping it near a fire pit. You huddle close as the flames catch, your hands thawing just enough to feel the pain. There's a scholarly debate about winter mortality on the wall. Some historians estimate thousands died from cold and exhaustion, their names lost to the snow. Others argue the Han provided furs and extra rations to keep workers alive. You're not sure who's right, but you're clutching that fire like it's your only friend. A stone finally breaks free, and you and Liang haul it to a sled, your boots crunching in the snow. The sled's bound for the wall, but the path's a frozen nightmare, and you're sliding more than walking. You're graceful as a drunk ox. Liang says, steadying you. You'd shove him, but you need his help. Here's a joke: you try skating this ice, you'd crash into the wall and call it progress. And another: you think you're cold, the stones are shivering, and they're tougher than you. The sled reaches the wall, where masons are cursing the frost that's cracking their sticky rice paste. You're tasked with mixing more, stirring a pot of the stuff over a fire. It smells like porridge, and you're half tempted to eat it. But May's glare stops you. "That's for the wall, not your stomach," she says. You nod, stirring until your arms ache. Here's a third joke: you try cooking for the crew. You'd burn the rice and glue the pot to the fire. And a fourth: you think you're tired. The oxen are dreaming of a beach vacation. By midday, the sun's out, but it's a liar, offering light but no warmth. You're back at the quarry, chiseling again, when a shout rings out. A sled's overturned, spilling stones across the path. You join the crew to clear it, your hands raw as you stack the rocks. Liang's there, joking. You're building a snowman next. Right, you toss a snowball at him. And for a moment, the cold's bearable. The wall's growing, inch by inch, and you're part of it, even if your fingers might not forgive you. Dusk falls early, the sky a deep indigo, and you're finally off duty. The camp's fires glow like beacons, and you collapse by one. May and Liang beside you. Someone's passing around hot broth, a miracle in this freeze. You didn't lose any toes. Mysis, smirking, proud of you. You laugh, because surviving feels like a victory. Here's a final joke. You try sleeping through this cold, you'd wake up as an icicle. And Jade Feather, remember that Peacock would peck you for sport. You curl up under your blanket. The fires crackle, lulling you toward sleep. The wall's still there, stubborn against the snow. And you're still here, stubborn too. You dream of spring, of warmth, of a day without chisels or frost. Tomorrow, you'll face the cold again. Maybe dodge Liang's snowballs or May's sarcasm. But for now, you're warm enough, alive enough. And that's enough. You're startled awake by the thump of drums, a rare sound that pulls you from your frost-dusted mat with a jolt. The camp's alive with chatter. And for once, it's not about rocks or rain. Today's a festival, a fleeting break from the Great Wall's grind, held in a nearby village to honor the harvest moon. Picture it. You're trudging through the morning chill, your tunic slightly less grimy after a quick scrub, headed for a day of music, food, and the chance to embarrass yourself with dance moves that belong in a nightmare. Spoiler, you're about to discover that your two left feet are the real enemy, not the Xiongnu. You join a ragtag procession of laborers, the air buzzing with laughter and the scent of roasted chestnuts from vendors lining the path. The village is a cluster of thatched roofs nestled against the wall's shadow, its streets strung with paper lanterns that sway like drunken fireflies. You're clutching a copper coin, your only wealth, wondering if it'll buy a skewer of pork or just a sympathetic smile. The foreman's given you half a day off. A miracle. You're sure he's regretting already. Don't disgrace the wall, he growled, but you're too excited to care. This festival ties to the orthodox event of the Han Dynasty's cultural life, Circa Cento BCE. When rural communities held moon festivals to pray for prosperity, Emperor Wu encouraged these gatherings, partly to boost morale, partly to remind everyone who funded the rice wine. You're not here for politics, though you're here for the dumplings and the faint hope of blending in. The wall's still there, looming like a stern parent. But today, you're just a villager with a day to live. Liang's at your side, his grin wider than the Yellow River. You ready to charm the village, he asks, tossing a chestnut in the air. Want a tip? Don't dance, you'll scare the children. You shove him, but you're laughing. The festival's in full swing. Jugglers toss flaming torches. A lute player strums a tune about lost love, and kids dart through the crowd, stealing buns. Here's a quirky fact. Some villagers believed the moon was a goddess who judged your dancing. You glance at the sky, hoping she's not watching, because you're about to offend her deeply. You're weaving through stalls when May spots you, her scarf bright against the gray morning. She's holding a bamboo flute, a prize from a ring toss game. You try this, she asks, blowing a note that's sharper than the foreman's whip. You try, and it sounds like a dying goose. May laughs so hard she nearly drops her flute. There's a scholarly debate about how much freedom laborers like you had. Some historians say festivals were tightly controlled, with guards ensuring nobody ran off. Others argue they were a rare escape, a chance to feel human. You're leaning toward the latter, because right now, you're free enough to make a fool of yourself. You're lured to a dance circle, where villagers are spinning to a drum beat that shakes your ribs. Liang pushes you in, shouting, "Show them your wall-hauling grace." You flail, arms flapping like a startled crane, and the crowd roars not with admiration, but close enough. A girl with braids giggles, mimicking your moves, and you bow, playing along. Here's a joke you try leading this dance. You'd trip over the moon and land in a dumpling cart. And another you think you're smooth. The lute player's got better moves, and he's missing a tooth. The day heats up, and you're sweating through your tunic, a skewer of pork in one hand, a rice cake in the other. You're at a storytelling tent when a puppeteer reenacts a Xiongnu raid. Wooden horses galloping across a cloth stage. The crowd gasps, and you feel a chill. Remembering your watchtower shift, that deer still haunts you. Liang whispers, "You'd be the puppet that trips." You'd argue, but he's probably right. Here's a third joke you try puppetry. You'd tangle the strings and start a riot. And a fourth, you think you're festive. The lanterns are outshining you. And they're made of paper. By afternoon, you're stuffed and slightly dizzy from rice wine, watching a lantern-making contest. May's crafting one shaped like a lotus, her fingers nimble as ever. You try, and your lantern looks like a squashed melon. "Stick to rocks," she says, smirking. You laugh, because she's earned it. The festival's a blur of colors and sounds, and you're starting to feel like you belong until you trip over a stall, spilling a tray of buns. The vendor glares, but Liang tosses him a coin. "Saving your hide. You're a walking disaster," he says, but his grin says he's not mad. Dusk falls, and the moon rises, full and golden, casting the wall in a soft glow. You're back in the dance circle, too tired to care how bad you look. The drums slow, and you sway. The crowd a warm blur. Here's a final joke you try, serenading the moon. You'd scare her back to the stars. And Jade Feather, remember that Peacock would cackle from the sidelines. The festival ends with a lantern release. Hundreds of lights floating skyward like dreams you can't quite hold. You watch, your heart full, your coin gone, your dignity questionable. May hands you a spare lantern, and you let it go, whispering a wish for easier days. The laborers trudge back to camp, the wall waiting like an old friend who never shuts up. You collapse on your mat, the moon still watching, and drift off to the echo of drums. Tomorrow, you'll haul rocks again, maybe dodge Liang's teasing or May's flute. But for now, you're warm, you're alive, and that's enough. You're yanked from sleep by a mason's shout, the kind that means trouble before your eyes are even open. The Great Wall's morning haze reveals a new nightmare, a section of the wall. One, you sweated over for weeks, is crumbling like a bad millet cake. Stones slipping loose under their own weight. Picture it, you're scrambling to the site, your tunic half tucked, dodging carts and curses, tasked with patching this mess before the foreman feeds you to the oxen. Spoiler, you're about to learn that fixing a wall is harder than building it, and your aim with a mallet is worse than a drunken archer's. The camp's a frenzy. Laborers hauling tools and sticky rice paste while the sun climbs. Indifferent to your panic, the damaged section, part of a low rampart near a watchtower, looks like it's mocking you. Its stones scattered like a child's broken toy. You're not sure if it was shoddy work, a tremor in the earth, or just the wall's way of saying, "I'm tired too." The foreman's red-faced, yelling, "Fix it, or you'll be sleeping under it." You'd rather not test if he means it. This repair job ties to the orthodox event of the Great Wall's constant maintenance, Circacento, BCE, when Han Dynasty crews weren't just building but rebuilding. As weather, raids, and time gnawed at the stones, Emperor Wu's officials kept logs of every crack, paranoid about weak spots inviting Xiongnu attacks. You're no official, just a pair of hands trying not to drop a hammer on your foot. But you feel the weight of their obsession. The wall's supposed to be eternal, but right now, it's a grumpy pile of rubble. Liang's already at the site, prying loose stones with a crowbar. "You look like you saw a ghost," he says, smirking. "Want a tip? Treat the wall like a lover, gentle, but firm." You roll your eyes, but you're grateful for his grin amidst the chaos. You grab a mallet and start tapping stones into place. Your hands shaky from last night's festival wine. Those drums still echo in your skull. Here's a quirky fact. Some damaged sections were reinforced with rammed earth, packed so tight it outlasted the stones. You're not packing earth today, but you're tempted to bury the foreman's whip in it. May's nearby, mixing sticky rice paste with a scowl. This batch better hold, she mutters, stirring the gooey mess. You're assigned to carry buckets of it, sloshing half the stuff on your sandals. The paste smells like lunch, and you're starving. But May's glare says eating, it's a death sentence. There's a scholarly debate about why sections failed. Some historians blame rushed construction under imperial deadlines. Others point to natural wear floods, quakes, or frost, like you battled last winter. You're no scholar, but you're betting on the foreman's impatience, because he's screaming for speed now. You're setting a stone when it slips, nearly crushing your toes. Liang catches it, laughing. You're rebuilding the wall one bruise at a time. You'd shove him, but you're too busy blushing. The masons are yelling for more paste, and you're running buckets back and forth. Your arms burning. Here's a joke you try leading this repair. You'd stack the stones backward and call it art. And another you think you're strong, the wall's laughing. And it's got cracks to prove it. By midday, the sun's a furnace, and you're sweating through your tunic, the paste drying in sticky patches on your skin. A mason shows you how to wedge stones tighter. Her patience a miracle. Think of it like a puzzle, she says, echoing May's old advice. You try, but your puzzle looks like a toddler's tantrum. Liang's no help. Joking? You're building a monument to chaos. You toss a pebble at him, and he ducks, still grinning. Here's a third joke. You try outsmarting this wall. It'd collapse just to spite you. And a fourth. You think you're sweaty. The oxen are jealous, and they're pulling twice your weight. The repair's taking shape. The rampart looking less like a ruin and more like a wall again. You're hauling a final stone when the foreman actually claps your shoulder. Not terrible. He grunts. You're stunned, almost dropping the stone. May catches your eye, nodding approval, and even Liang's quiet for once, focused on his own stack. You pose, wiping dust from your brow, and notice a faint carving on a stone, someone's initials. Maybe from years ago. It's a reminder that this wall's a patchwork of hands, yours included. Dusk paints the hills, gold, and the crew's wrapping up. The rampart sturdy enough to pass inspection. You collapse by a fire, your body screaming but your heart oddly full. May hands you a millet cake, and Liang toasts you with a gourd of water. To not ruining the wall, he says. Here's a final joke you try bragging about this fix. The wall'd crumble again. And Jade Feather, remember that Peacock would strut on the wreckage. You stretch out on your mat, the stars sharp against the night sky. The wall's holding for now, and you're holding too. Despite your aches and fumbles, you dream of a day when the wall's done, when you're free to rest without a mallet in hand. Tomorrow, you'll face new cracks. Maybe dodge Liang's pebbles or May's sarcasm. But for now, you're alive. The fire's warm, and that's enough. You're stirred from sleep by a hushed whisper, the kind that carries trouble on its breath. And you crack open your eyes to see Liang's face hovering over your mat. The Great Wall's camp is cloaked in pre-dawn shadows, the air sharp with the promise of secrets. And you're being pulled into a plot that could land you in chains or worse. Picture it. You're sneaking through the camp, your heart pounding louder than a festival drum, dodging, snoring laborers and creaking carts, all because Liang thinks there's a spy among the crew. Spoiler, you're about to fumble your way through espionage, and your cloak's more likely to betray you than any traitor. You pull on your tunic, still gritty from yesterday's repair work, and follow Liang to a corner of the camp where the wall's shadow feels heavier than usual. He's got that wild look, the one that means he's either brilliant or doomed. Someone's passing notes to the Xiongnu, he whispers, pointing to a scrap of cloth he found near the watchtower. It's got strange markings, maybe a map. Maybe nonsense. You're no spy. Just a laborer who'd rather be hauling rocks than playing hero. But Liang's insistence drags you in like a cart stuck in mud. This cloak and dagger mess ties to the orthodox event of the Han Dynasty's paranoia, Circa cento BCE, when Emperor Wu's court was obsessed with rooting out traitors. Spies were real Xiongnu scouts, bribed workers for intel on weak spots. And the Han executed anyone caught whispering secrets. You're not sure if Liang's right, but the thought of a spy in the camp makes your skin crawl. The wall's your life, your blisters. Your pride betraying it feels like betraying Mei's lotus carving or Liang's terrible puns. Liang hands you the cloth, and you squint at it in the dim light of a stolen lamp. You're good at puzzles, he says. Figure it out. You're not. But you try, tracing the lines that might be rivers or just someone's bad sketch. Here's a quirky fact: some spies used coded poems, hiding messages in lines about love or harvests. You're no poet, and this cloth's no sonnet. But you're starting to sweat. Liang's pacing, muttering about a laborer named Chen who's been too quiet. You'd laugh, Chen's just shy, but Liang's got you spooked. You're creeping toward the supply tents when Mei spots you, her eyes narrowing. What are you idiots doing? She hisses. Joining you, without waiting for an answer. She's sharper than both of you combined. And you're relieved she's here, even if she's calling you a fool. There's a scholarly debate about how common spying was. Some historians say it was rare, with most laborers too loyal or scared to betray the Han. Others argue the Xiongnu's silver flowed freely, turning desperate workers into informants. You don't know the truth, but you're clutching that cloth like it's a death sentence. You're hiding behind a cart when you trip over your cloak, the lamp clattering loud enough to wake the Emperor. Liang yanks you down, and Mei smothers a laugh. You're the worst spy, she whispers. You'd argue, but she's right. Here's a joke: you try sneaking past the foreman. You'd trip and confess everything, including your bad dance moves from the festival. And another, you think you're sly, the oxen are stealthier, and they're hauling half the quarry. The three of you creep toward Chen's tent, your sandals crunching traitorously on gravel. Liang's convinced Chen's the culprit, but you're doubting everything. Maybe the cloth's just laundry. You're peeking inside when Chen stirs, muttering in his sleep about millet cakes. You freeze, your cloak catching on a tent peg. Mei cuts it free with a knife she pulls from nowhere, and you're both impressed and terrified. Here's a third joke: you try outsmarting a spy. You'd hand them the map and apologize. And a fourth, you think you're quiet. The camp dogs are howling your secrets to the moon. Dawn's creeping closer, and you're still empty-handed. Mei suggests checking the watchtower where Liang found the cloth. You climb up, your legs wobbly from nerves, and spot a loose stone, with more markings scratched beneath it. Arrows. Maybe a signal. Your stomach drops. Liang's whispering theories, but Mei's practical, scraping the marks with her knife. Could be old, she says, or kids playing. You want to believe her, but the cloth in your pocket feels heavier than a quarry rock. You're descending when the foreman's shout nearly sends you tumbling. What are you doing up there? He bellows. You stammer. Liang lies about checking repairs, and Mei just glares like she's daring him to ask more. He lets you go, muttering about lazy fools. And you're back at the camp, shaken but alive. Liang hides the cloth, promising to watch Chen. Mei rolls her eyes but agrees to help. You're not sure if you foiled a plot or just ruined a good night's sleep. By morning, you're hauling rocks again, the spy hunt fading under the sun's glare. Liang's still muttering, but Mei's focused on mixing sticky rice paste. Hair knife tucked away. You're exhausted, your cloak's torn, and you're praying Chen's just a bad sleeper. Here's a final joke: you try spying for the Xiongnu. You'd get lost delivering the message. And Jade Feather, remember that Peacock would rat you out for a millet crumb. You collapse on your mat as dusk falls, the wall's silhouette steady against the stars. You're no closer to catching a spy, but you're closer to Liang and Mei, your partners in this clumsy conspiracy. You dream of a day without secrets, without cloaks catching on pegs. Tomorrow, you'll haul more rocks, maybe dodge Liang's wild theories or Mei's knife. But for now, you're safe. The wall's unbetrayed, and that's enough. You're jolted awake by the roar of water, a sound so fierce, it drowns out the usual camp noises. And you stumble from your mat to find the Great Wall's frontier under siege not by Xiongnu, but by a monsoon that's turned the world into a river. Picture it. You're wading through knee-deep mud, rain lashing your face, trying to save the wall from collapsing under a flood that's washing away your hard work and your lunch. Spoiler, you're about to battle nature's wrath, and your sandals are already floating toward the next dynasty. The camp's a chaotic soup of shouting laborers, toppled carts, and oxen bellowing like they're auditioning for a tragedy. The wall's newest section, the one you patched just days ago, is crumbling as water claws at its base. Stones slipping like they've given up. You're soaked to the bone. Your tunic, a second skin, and the foreman screaming orders no one can hear over the storm. Save the wall, he yells, his whip useless against the deluge. You'd rather save yourself, but there's no running from this mess. This flood ties to the orthodox event of the Han Dynasty's environmental struggles, Circacento, BCE. When monsoons and rivers tested the Great Wall's endurance, Emperor Wu's engineers built drainage channels and raised foundations, but nature didn't always cooperate. You're living that fight now, hauling sandbags to shore up the wall while rain stings your eyes. The Xiongnu might be the Empire's enemy, but today, the real threat is the sky, and it's not taking prisoners. Liang's beside you, wrestling a sandbag that's heavier than his ego. You look like a drowned fish. He shouts over the rain, "Want a tip? Swim faster." You'd laugh, but you're too busy slipping in the mud. You heave the bag onto a pile, your arms screaming, and glance at the wall. Its stones glistening like they're crying. Here's a quirky fact. Some laborers used woven reed mats to slow erosion during floods, tying them to stones like giant bandages. You're not weaving today, but you're tempted to wrap yourself in one and call it a day. Mei's nearby, directing a crew to dig a trench, her scarf plastered to her face. "Keep the water away from the base," she yells, her voice cutting through the storm. You grab a shovel, digging until your hands blister, the mud sucking at your feet like it's personal. There's a scholarly debate about how floods shaped the wall's design. Some historians say disasters forced smarter engineering, higher walls, better drains. Others argue the Han just threw more laborers at the problem, burying losses in unmarked graves. You're no engineer, but you're burying your energy in this trench. And it's not enough. A stone tumbles from the wall, splashing into the flood, and you lunge to catch another before it follows. Liang pulls you back, shouting, "You're not a hero, he's right. But you're stubborn," stacking the stone with shaky hands. The crew's a blur of motion. Sandbags piling up, trenches deepening. But the water's relentless. Here's a joke. You try stopping this flood, you'd drown trying to plug it with your tunic. And another, you think you're wet, the wall's sobbing. And it's made of stone. By midday, the rain eases to a drizzle, but the damage is done. The wall's base is a muddy scar, and half your sandbags are floating away. You're tasked with fetching more, slogging to a supply cart where a clerk's guarding them like gold. "Don't waste these," he snaps. You'd argue, but you're too tired, hauling bags back while dodging a stray ox that's decided to swim. Here's a third joke you try. Outrunning this mud, you'd sink, and the fish would laugh. And a fourth, you think you're tough. The flood's tougher, and it's not even trying. The crew's making progress. The trench diverting water to a nearby gully. Maze everywhere, tying reeds to stabilize the mud. Her knife flashing as she cuts them free. You're in awe, following her lead. Your own knots looking like a child's scribble. Liang's yoking. You're tying a masterpiece for a pigsty. You toss mud at him, and he ducks, still grinning. The wall's holding, barely, and you're starting to believe you might win this round. Dusk falls, the sky bruised but calm, and the flood's receding, leaving a wreckage of mud and broken tools. You collapse by a fire, your body a map of aches. May hands you a soggy millet cake, and Liang toasts you with a gourd of rainwater. To surviving the sky's tantrum, he says, here's a final joke. You try fighting another flood. You'd build a boat, sink it, and jade feather. Remember that Peacock would paddle circles around you. You stretch out on your mat, the stars peeking through clouds, the wall's silhouette battered but standing. You're drained, but you're proud you saved something today, even if it's just a few stones. You dream of dry days, of a wall that doesn't need saving. Tomorrow, you'll haul more bags, maybe dodge Liang's mudballs or May's orders. But for now, you're alive. The fire's warm, and that's enough. You're roused by the soft clink of a chisel, a sound so familiar, it's woven into your dreams. And you open your eyes to the Great Wall's final stretch, under a dawn sky streaked with pink. Today's different. You're not just hauling rocks or patching cracks. You're carving your name into the wall, a quiet act of defiance to claim your place in its endless story. Picture it. You're crouched beside a weathered stone, your hands steady, despite the years of blisters, etching letters that might outlast you, all while the camp hums with the bittersweet buzz of a job nearly done. Spoiler, you're about to leave a mark, but your chisel skills are as shaky as your dance moves at that festival. The camp's kid are now, many laborers gone, their contracts fulfilled or their strength spent. The wall's almost complete in this section. Its stones, a testament to your sweat, Liang's puns, and May's knife-sharp focus. You're still here, though, tying up loose ends, and the foreman's given you a rare gift, a moment to carve something personal. Make it quick. He grunted, but his scowl was softer, like he knows this matters. You're clutching a dull chisel, your tunic dusted with frost from last night's chill, and the wall feels like an old friend who's seen you at your worst. This carving ties to the orthodox event of the Great Wall's completion phases, Circa cento BCE, when Han Dynasty workers finished key segments, turning a patchwork of defenses into a unified barrier against the Xiongnu. Emperor Wu's vision was grand miles of stone to guard an empire. But for you, it's personnel. Every rock you hauled, every flood you fought, every spy scare. Remember that cloth led to this. You're not carving for Wu. You're carving for the kid who started this job dreaming of something bigger than millet cakes. Liang's nearby, polishing a stone with a rag. His grin softer today. You're making history, he says, nodding at your chisel. Want a tip? Don't spell your name wrong. You snort, but your hands shake as you tap the stone, chips flying like tiny stars. Here's a quirky fact. Some laborers hid carvings in the wall, names, prayers, even crude jokes found centuries later by scholars. You're no poet, but you're hoping your name lasts longer than jade feather squawks. Remember that peacock? May owns you. Her lotus-carved stone already done. Her knife tucked away. Make it deep, she says, watching your work. The wind's a thief. You nod, pressing harder. Your letters wobbly, but yours. There's a scholarly debate about the wall's legacy. Some historians call it a triumph. a shield that shaped China's borders. Others say it was a brutal waste, built on broken backs and unmarked graves. You're no scholar, but you feel both sides, the pride in its strength, the ache in its cost. Your name's a small rebellion. Proof you were here. You're halfway through when a stone shifts nearby, and you jump, nearly chiseling your thumb. Liang laughs, steadying it. You're jumpier than a deer, he says, echoing that watchtower night. You'd shove him, but you're too focused. Your name, taking shape crooked, but clear. Here's a joke. You try carving a masterpiece. You'd chisel a stick figure and call it art. And another, you think you're steady. The wall's steadier. And it's been through a monsoon. The sun climbs, warming your back, and you're sweating through your tunic. The chisel slipping in your grip. May hands you a gourd of water. Her eyes on your carving. Not bad, she says. And you glow, because her praise is rarer than a dry day. You're finishing the last letter when the foreman calls for a final task, stacking leftover stones. You groan, but you're smiling, because this feels right. One last job before you walk away. By midday, your name's done, etched deep enough to defy the wind. You step back, the wall stretching endless in both directions, and feel a pang you're leaving soon. Back to a village or maybe nowhere at all. Liang claps your shoulder, and May nods, her lotus glowing in the light. Here's a third joke. You try leaving this wall, it'd follow you home, demanding more rocks. And a fourth, you think you're free. The wall's got your name now, and it's clingier than Liang. Duskfalls, the camp aglow with fires, and you're sharing a last meal with May and Liang hot broth, fresh millet cakes, even a sip of rice wine. To the wall, Liang toasts, and to us, who didn't break it. You laugh, your heart full. Here's a final joke. You try forgetting this place. The walled haunt your dreams, and Jade Feathered lead the charge. You lie on your mat, the stars bright above, the wall's silhouette, a quiet giant. You're done. Your name carved. Your hands finally still. You dream of new roads, of faces waiting beyond the hills. Tomorrow, you'll leave, maybe with Liang's laughter or May's knife as memories. But for now, you're here. The wall's yours, and that's enough. You're safe now, far from the wall's weight. Its stones and storms, a memory that softens with each breath. Picture yourself under a wide sky, the hills fading into dusk, the wind carrying only whispers of millet and laughter. You're not hauling rocks anymore, not dodging floods or spies. You're just you, resting in a quiet that feels earned. The stars twinkle, each one a story yours. Liang's, May's etched somewhere in the universe's vast wall. Let the camp's fires dim. Let the chisels clink fade. You're drifting, wrapped in the warmth of a life well lived. Your name safe in stone. Sleep now, gently, as the world hums its lullaby. Script complete. Sleep well,